Okay, in the tutorial we're going to be looking at creating a wheel in 3DSMax using a range of different techniques from edit poly modelling to spline modelling. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make the tyre that goes around the wheel. So to do that we're going to create one section of the tyre tread, and then we're going to clone that and then bend it round to form the wheel. So it's not a efficient way of doing it because it means you only have to model a very small section of the tyre to complete it. So obviously the first thing you need to do is find kind of specific tyre tread you want to make. So just by kind of going online, you can find the kind of tyre you want to do. If it's a big vehicle, you could look for something like tractor tyre. If it's a small kind of race vehicle, you might want something a bit more kind of like this with a thinner tread. So once you've got the example of the kind of tread you want, you pick a small cross section of it, say like that, and then you can clone that and just kind of loop it round. Okay, so we're going to do like a basic example here. So the first thing we're going to do is in our top view we're just going to make kind of box here. We'll try and get the scale kind of roughly right. And we can tweak that later. Okay, so with our kind of basic box made, first thing we're going to do is go to our modifier list and apply an edit poly modifier. We're then going to go to polygon mode and delete the bottom and both sides like so. Just going to make this a slightly easier colour to work with. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is make this even easier and simpler to work with. So we're going to create our tyre tread along here, but since it's mirrored on both sides we can use the Symmetry Modifier here. So if we go to edge mode, select these two edges here, just hit connect, use F4, and you can see now we've got this perfect kind of split down the centre. We can then delete one side and apply a Symmetry Modifier. If your axis is wrong, just make sure you've got the right axis and use flip if you need to. You can use this orange helper to show you which way to kind of go. Okay, so once we have that, we'll go back down in our stack to edge mode and we'll start kind of adding in the detail here. So the first thing we're going to do is get that kind of curvature on the tyre. So if we just select the end edge here, we'll just hit chamfer and just kind of tweak these amounts, maybe add one segment in there. Remember, we can potentially mesh smooth this later, so we don't necessarily have to have all the detail in our first kind of modelling pass. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add some cuts so that we can start creating some indents. So what we need to do is select this loop, this ring along here. So if we select one edge and then hold shift and click another one there, that will select that whole ring. Obviously you can do it with this button here as well, but the fastest way is to select one edge, hold shift, then click another edge along the ring, and it will select the whole lot. We'll just hit the connect button here and we'll add in some cuts. Now I'm thinking we'll have maybe two bits of tread here, but one along this cross section. So if I just hit OK there, and then select those edges there, or just use that technique there, and then hit connect, and we will add those there, then connect again, and this time pull into there. So that now gives us these two areas to indent. I'm thinking here we might want to just pull that out to there, and just pull that one to there. Now if we go into polygon mode, we'll select these two polygons. Remember the shortcuts for these are 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 on the keyboard. That's number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So vertex mode there, 4 takes you into polygon mode. In fact, what we'll do first, rather than indenting, is define the shape a bit better. So maybe if we select these vertices here, we'll just pull them up like so, and then go back to polygon mode, and we'll just hit bevel, and we'll just indent, click, and then define the bevel. Remember, you can use your other views here to help you get it kind of just right. And there we go, we have a basic kind of tyre thread. Now what we might want to do here actually is just go into our side view and just pull this in a bit. And I'm also thinking it looks a little bit too deep, so let's use our front view to kind of pull that up a bit too. Okay, so that's our kind of cross section of the tyre tread. So the next thing we want to do is actually kind of clone this along and then bend them round to form the wheel. So in your stack, add an edit poly modifier. The reason we do that is because at the moment you're on symmetry here, so with this edit poly you're only editing half the object. So our stack go, we've got the box, we've used an edit poly here to create this 1/2. Let's come down to here, that's our 1/2. Symmetry makes it to the 2/2, then adding the edit poly on makes it into one object. So in order to kind of clone these across, if we hold shift and clone, you'll see that we can kind of just about kind of line it up, and then if we do a couple of copies, we'll have that. Now of course though, that isn't precise, and we'd much rather be precise about this. So to make it actually a precise movement, if you turn on snap mode, S to toggle that on or off, right click and make sure you're set to just vertex mode, then holding shift to copy, and you'll see I get this, let's go to full screen for this, you'll see I get this little yellow icon here, and that tells me what vertex I'm snapping to. Hold shift, drag, see this yellow line, and then just snap it onto the end there. Now for this demo we'll do, say, I don't know, 22 copies, and there you go, you see we've now got a nice row of thread. Now you'll notice that with one selected it's in dark bold font here. Now the reason for that is because it's in an instant. So if I go to vertex mode, turn off snap, move up one, you'll see they all change. That's essential because if you want to make any changes to your tyre tread, it's much easier if you can just change one rather than trying to change them all. I'm just going to go back a few steps and show you how I did that. So edit poly, turn on snap mode, then hold shift and drag across to there, and you see in our clone options we have copy and instance, and we're set to instance here, so that's fine. Put 20 again, clone like so. Okay, I'm going to turn off snap mode now. Now to make these bend round, you need to select them all, and in your modifier list apply bend modifier, and then set the angle to 360 degrees because we know we want it to be a complete circle, and then change your bend axis to the one you want. Now if you're not getting it right, that means that you just need to set the direction as well, and if again it's not right, it will be minus 90 instead of 90. So it's quite useful in a way that we had that happening. So I can show you how the bend modifier kind of works. Okay, so there we have our completed wheel. You can see we've got a slight kind of shading issue on this, so let's just quickly tweak that. So we'll select one, turn off bend, go to our top view with T, come down to editable poly in our stack, we'll select these, I'm just going to pull them down to so it's all straightened up. Come back up again, turn on bend, and we should find that that's fixed the problem. Okay, so one other thing we might want to do with this is you'll notice that as a tyre, this isn't a very kind of thick tyre. So for something like this, which is kind of a big kind of off-road vehicle style tyre, if we come back down to our editable poly again, make sure that bend's turned off, and we'll just select this side and pull that down. There we go, and we now have the nice, the thicker kind of tyre. If you still think that's not thick enough, you can always just come in again and do that again. In fact, other things you might do, you might even add some detail into this area here. So again, we can do that by coming down to turning off our bend modifier, coming down to editable poly here. If you want to see the other side, just turn on that. And again, we can just select the edges we want, connect that up there, maybe pinch that in, and we'll just slide this up to here. Maybe that'll pinch even more. I'm just going to move this up. Sometimes it's easier, just if you can, just to move them up like so. And then maybe we'll extrude that in a little bit. Make sure you delete these side ones. If you're having difficulty with the zooming in and out, if you just hit Z on your keyboard, that will fix that problem. There we go. So again, we'll come out of polygon mode and go back up to our bend modifier. There we go, we have a little ridge in there now as well. And you can add in any kind of extra detail you want. Obviously the advantage of this technique is that you can make kind of minor changes and it will affect the entire model. The last little thing to do at the end when you've completely finished everything is to select everything, apply and edit poly. Just to show you a little trick I do here actually, is I just clone the wheel over here, make that a copy, so that you've always got your kind of instance version here. Because when we make it into one big model, you won't be able to reference the instancing section again. So right click, make unique, and then make unique again. Sorry there, I haven't done that quite right. So convert to editable poly, and then we'll just hide unselected and come over to edit poly mode, go to attach, and we'll just select them all, and now you see we've got one model. And then the other thing we need to do is come to vertex mode, select all, and just hit the world button. And there we go, it's now one complete tyre. And if you want to come back and make changes, you've always got this one if you want to use the kind of instancing again. Okay, so that's the creation of the initial tyre. Okay, so in the next part of the tutorial we're going to be modelling the kind of hubcap and actual wheel area of the tyre. So the first thing we're going to do is just add some detail. I've actually already added it in on this one, so let's just get rid of that. Do the same on this side. Okay, so we're back to how we had the original wheel, so the original tyre. So what I then did was I then went to edge mode, then selected an edge, hold shift and to select that loop there. Did the same here, hold control, click one, hold shift and select another in the loop, and you get both of those. And then went to scale mode, and making sure when you use the just these two axes, you hold shift and just pull down, and that'll clone you, create an extra loop like that. I then scaled them both inwards like that, but only a small amount. If your scale isn't working properly, it will be because you haven't got your selection type right. So if you look at this icon here, if it's set to this and I do it, you'll see that won't work. But if I'm on selection center, that will work. Okay, then what we'll do is we'll select the loop there, hold control and then hold shift to select the loop there as well, and we'll just chamfer that little area inwards. We'll probably just do it to there for now. Okay, so now we have the kind of little rim area here. Okay, now when you're modelling a kind of wheel, you need to make sure you're very precise. And the reason you do this is because when you come to animating, so your wheel actually moving around, you'll have a lot of problems if you've got shapes that are even slightly kind of out of line. So first thing to do is to come to your hierarchy, effect pivot only, and just make sure your pivot is in the center of your object. And the next thing we want to do is actually with our coordinate values down here, just set them all to 0. So then we know that whenever we create a new object, if we set the pivot of that new object also to 0, 0, 0, it'll line up exactly. So I'll show you what I mean. If I create a cylinder here, sorry about that, it's just because I had a layer that's automatically hidden and it was creating objects onto that new layer. Still doing that, I just need to make that into default and then make a new cylinder like so. So as you can see, I could try and line it up by hand. It's going to be very difficult to get that absolutely precise. However, if I change my coordinate values to 0, 0, 0 here, then that cylinder will now be perfectly aligned. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this to make the hubcap area of the wheel. And to do this, you need to get a couple of things right straight from the bat. For a start, make sure you've got enough sides, and make sure that it's an even number, because we're going to make one section and then clone that section over in a similar way to what we did with the tyre area here. So I always kind of work in kind of variables of 8. You could work with 64, but I tend to find that's too high level of detail to start off with, because you can always kind of turbo smooth the model later. You'll create yourself a lot more work if you do have that set kind of higher. The other thing to do is make sure you've got a reference of whatever the hubcap looks like that you're aiming to emulate. This again it gives you a clear idea of what you're trying to create in your head, and will always kind of save you time. Okay, so we'll just increase the radius to kind of fit in there, and we'll apply an edit poly modifier. And come over to edit here, we're going to select Swift Loop and just drop in, say, a loop there. We'll also drop in a loop there, and then we're going to have a small kind of centre area here. Now you'll notice that Swift Loop doesn't actually work in there, and that's the same for kind of all 3D apps. For some reason you can't actually create a loop within there. There is a way to do it though. If you come to vertex mode, select the inner vertex, hold Control and hit Edge, and then with that edge selection made, you can use Connect just to add in a loop. That's kind of perfectly where we want it. Actually, I'm going to add in one more, because we can always remove these easily anyway. Just going to add one here as well. Okay, so based on this shape, I can see that I'll need these kind of 2 sections here for the hubcap. So I'm just going to I'm just going to delete these sections here to give myself a better idea. We're going slightly mad. And also, it's going to hide unselected, and I'm just going to, I'll show you another way of doing it. Just going to delete this back area here as well. Turning on by angle and just deleting that entire area there. And I'm also going to get rid of these. I could have actually set this up from the start, so I'm causing myself a bit more work by not kind of planning this properly. Okay, back to left view. Unhide our wheel area here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select that loop, go to scale mode with R, and I'm just going to pull this area down a bit as well. And then I'm going to select each of these vertices and scale that in like so. Okay, now this bit is going to extrude out a bit. So we're going to extrude that out. Then select each of these vertices. And pull those in. And then maybe pull those up. pull those down, and then go to scale mode with R, and do that. We've started getting our extrusion area. Okay, I think that's about kind of enough now to actually array this. So what we need is just one section out. So the smallest kind of area we have that we can tile. So if I just select each of these and select that one, make sure my selection is correct. And now if we look at that selection can clone there, and just kind of all the way around the model. Which means again I only have to edit this one section here in order to edit the entire wheel. So I'm just going to detach that, and then I'll move this over here just in case I haven't done it correctly, and then we'll go to Tools, Array, and you can see from this tool what we have is array transformation, and you have an ID count here. Now I'll put that down to 6 for now. So we have move, rotate and scale. So let's just try this out. So I'll try just moving it on X, preview. We'll see it will move, it will create that many versions moving that distance on X. Okay, so like so. Or if we put 0 back in there and try moving it on Y, you'll see it create that many versions like that. Now obviously we don't want movement, but I just wanted to show you that the kind of movement parameters are there in case you find it useful for another assignment. And what we want is rotate here. So if we activate rotate, you can see it's the wrong axis, like so. Now obviously you can use your original model to define how many you need, or you can use your maps brains to figure it out. I know I need 8 here, so keep moving them around 45 degrees and hit O. Make sure you're set to instant, so if you affect one it will affect the rest, and hit OK. So now we have the same model, the only difference being if we select one of our shapes, it will now affect them all rather than just one. So it's much faster to model in this way. I'm just going to put this into my hide layer, so that now I can edit this freely. Okay, so now we're going to start adding detail to this area. Obviously we're going to turbo smooth this end result, so the best thing to do is to work in with the turbo smooth on top of your model like so. Come down to edit poly to work, and every time you've kind of made changes you can check how they're going to look by just toggling the end result here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add some depth to various areas, so we'll select these four here and we'll just extrude that down, making sure we delete the 2 side polys there, and we'll do the same with this. We'll extrude that down as well, and we'll delete these 2 polygons here, and then we'll come into edge mode and we'll just select the edges along here and we'll just pull those down. To be precise about it, remember you can use snap mode, make sure you're in vertex mode and just snap it down to there, and then we'll go to vertex mode, select it with Control A and hit weld. Okay, so we also need some depth along here. So we should be able to use border here actually. We select that. No, we selected all the other external ones as well. So we'll select each of those, and remember to do that one too, and just shift and drag them down. Okay, so let's have a look at how it's going to look with Turbo Smooth. And we're starting to get the rough shape there, but we're going to need to add in some extra loops so that the smoothing works correctly. Okay, so if you come up to Edit and select Swift Loop, we'll try and fix this area up here first. So you notice when we're doing the Swift Loop that down here it's not actually adding in the loop, so we'll have to fix that later. So it's always worth, don't just come jumping in and just clicking Swift Loop everywhere. Make sure that it's actually looping everywhere correctly. So we want this to curve a bit basically. So to make sure there's a sufficient kind of gap between them for that to form a kind of smooth curve. Remember, we'll need one this end as well, of course. Okay, so we'll probably need one here too. So we'll just drop a loop in there. And yep, that's done it correctly. Let's preview that. Okay, so we can see we're starting to get the detail we want. It's quite jagged around here, so let's add some cuts in there. You might be able to get away with one there and one there. And again, notice down here it hasn't joined those, so it's probably best we'll just remake this little section here. Okay, that's starting to look much better already. Obviously we have an issue here, but that will be fixed once we weld each segment of the model together, and this will fix afterwards too. Okay, well actually that's not looking far off, to be honest. You might want to come in and tweak some of the height we put on this just to make it stick out a bit more. And likewise with this area, so make sure you think about obviously your depth as well. We might want that to stick out a bit. It's totally up to you depending on the kind of design you're coming up with. Also we might want to chamfer this edge here. Just to get the kind of curvature right on there. And kind of similar up here as well. You might want to chamfer this area just to get more kind of defined curvature on it. Looking at it now, I think we might need one extra loop. We'll try a couple. We could try either in here. Let's see what that does. What's cool actually is if you apply the smooth and then just hit undo, you can see if it's had the loop you've had has had any difference, and it has. It's helped to define this edge a bit more. We might also want to add one here as well. Okay, so we're not far off with the shape I wanted at all. One thing I might just do actually is make a quick tweak here, just to pull some of these down a bit. So I'm kind of happy enough with that for now. So just as you did with the original kind of tyre here, just select all of these and put them over here, just so that when we attach all these together you can still come back and make kind of tweaks here if you want to ever change the shape. Okay, so select all the kind of inner areas here, bin the turbo smooth, and then, well, in fact, one thing I forgot to do was redo the area here. I'll just delete. In fact, what I think I'll do is I will attach them all together, then do that. So select them all, convert to editable poly, select one, go to attach, and just attach all together. Bad bit of file management there. And then go to vertex mode and just hit weld. Obviously making sure you don't weld together any unnecessary verts. Apply a turbo smooth. And now we can come in and fix this problem area here. So I'm going to use biangle, delete all that, loop this edge here, hold shift in edge mode, and only on these two axes, so that line there, not the center one, this line here, just pull in, and then you hold control, hit vertex to select all those verts, and then hit weld, and just increase the weld threshold so they all come together. So hopefully we should find that that now works okay. You're still getting problems in there, which I am there. That's because it doesn't like tries very much. So we can fix that by just creating another loop and just sliding right in there, like so. Okay. Now we have the creation of the hubcap. What I'm going to do, just to manage this properly, is go to manage layers and put these into my hide layer. So now I only have the models, the final kind of models. So not very suitable colour at the moment. So one thing we might want to do here is just extend this back. Like so. And then we can tweak this model here by, it's not right, go to edge mode. Select that loop. I'm just going to pull that in for now. And then also we'll want to join up all these as well. We'll do that shortly though. Just want to look at how it's looking. Okay, so we've got the start of a kind of basic wheel here now.